Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Fanalysis, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. I am Rutty4, this is Grey Jedi 91.
Good evening.
And this is Antoine Bunderley.
Yellow.
Lead us in with a summary for this chapter map.
Oh yeah, what is this chapter?
Whomping Willow.
The Whomping Willow. So in this chapter, Harry is going back to Hogwarts, and unfortunately, he and Ron aren't able to take the train as usual from platform 9 3/4, so they fly their way into the school with the Mr. Weasley's flying car, and things go horribly wrong in the process, so let's get into it.
Well, we open up with the summer holidays ending at the Weasleys' household, and we get the little morning routine of of everyone's familial panic before any great big journey or trip, as they're prepping to get ready to turn up to platform 9 3/4 with the amount of people involved in that for the Weasleys plus Harry.
It's very similar if you ever seen Home Alone. Like, you remember that first Home Alone movie when they leave Kevin at home because they have a huge family. They're all trying to figure out who has what luggage is where, what child is what.
Why is this the movie we're always referencing on Fanalysis?
I didn't realize we did. Did we do it
It's
before?
come up
We've
like
done it
at
before,
least
yeah.
3 times, yeah.
Oh, looks like we got a new one on it. Even I don't know what we would do. Hijinks.
Analysis, Home
Yeah.
Alone, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's very similar to that. Like, if you remember that opening scene where they're all leaving to wherever they're going in the first movie, it's very similar. Do they always use the Ford? Is that the idea, that they use the Ford always to go to
Well, we
to
don't
go
know
to King's
exactly
Cross?
how recent it is for them. It could be that the Weasleys have used it before. No, actually, no, because Mrs. Weasley is surprised by it. Yeah, so it's a new thing this year for them. And also, you think Ron would have mentioned it at some point in the previous year as well.
Right, because I wonder how they got there before, because he mentions that, they only do that kind of stuff because we're all underage. We can't, do, unless I guess they do like a Blue Powder network that's very close to there or something.
Yeah, we're not sure.
I don't
They
know.
take cabs as well in the later books. So
That's right, they do take cabs, you're right.
yeah, which would have been
So true.
monumentally expensive. But it's like a cab from exterior
I know.
London into central London. It's like, what?
Well, can't you just jinx the driver into forgetting he drove you somewhere?
You can if you want to. If you
I'm sure
want to
that
screw
could be
them over.
illegal. That's probably illegal, right?
Well, we know
I'm sure
Ron.
there's some
We
sort
know
of law
Ron.
against that.
Of all the
Can
things
fund
that
his
Wizards
driving
should
test
have
person.
is like self-driving cabs, though. They should already way beyond that.
Yeah.
Right.
In any case,
Absolutely.
Well, the reason I mention it is because Mrs. Weasley, she doesn't seem to have an issue with, the car being magic so that they all can fit in there, because they fit the entire...
doesn't
Well,
realize
she doesn't.
it.
Yeah, she doesn't.
She doesn't realize it's
completely
magic.
Realize.
Like,
Oh, she just thinks that,
We
the
don't
Muggles
give
are
them
really
enough
good at-
credit. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
God, it really is quite roomy in here.
yeah,
Which is
Yeah,
a bit,
she's
on the nose and
it's hilarious.
unbelievable. But
It's hilarious how shrewd she can be when she's on it. Like, I'm in mom mode. I'm the disciplinarian. I need to punish somebody, and it's these Muggles are clever. It's like think about it.
Yeah.
I have
Just
people who
think
talk
about
about
it a
that
little
all the
bit.
time with my car, though, because I have a Honda Fit, and the whole thing about it is that you can fit stuff into it, and then people look at how small it is from the outside, but they get in, they're like, oh my god, it's way roomier than I thought. So
yeah,
had
the
that-
same
I
thing
had
with the
the
Civic.
comment.
They can be somewhat deceptive, but
But
not
it's
to
kind of
the
ridiculous
extent
when you
of
have 5
park
children in the
bench
back
length.
who fit. Yeah, and a park bench in the front. So
Yeah, TARDIS technology. But yeah, we get the first mention of the diary as well from Ginny. They go
Right,
back to
and
get
it's
it.
cool because JK is really good at doing that, where she puts a lot of stuff in it where it just seems like it's just like, oh, I'm just kind of having fun with the pros. George forgot his whatever, and whoever forgot whatever. Oh, and then she forgot her diary. Slipped in some Easter egg for you, or like a little nugget that you guys don't think about now until later. But she does that very well, throughout the
Yeah.
entire series.
It's like a fanboy thing. It's like when you first time that you read it, it's like whatever. She
Right?
forgot her
Yeah,
diary.
it's whatever.
And then after, when you reread it 5 years, it's a diary. It's a diary.
Why did you
Like,
shoot
that's
it
the
even
kind,
at
that's
home?
just the culture now is like oh, look at me, I noticed something. But yeah, it's really cool how she is able to do that with so much consistency.
Yeah,
throughout the
it's
series.
not like there's just this one instance. She does it all the time, and you pretty much never notice it. There are some occasions where it's like, okay, this means something because you're used to it. It's like 5 books in, you're thinking,
Right,
okay,
exactly.
yeah, this has
And
to be
most
something.
other works, it's like, oh, okay, they're doing a thing. But with her, it's just like if we were reading a new Harry Potter book at this point, we wouldn't be like, oh, there's something significant with that. Like, oh, I wonder why she mentioned that. Well, she also mentioned the filibusters. Like, who cares about, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it helps. There are also not red herrings, but there are so many like light mentions she throws in just for flavor that have nothing to do with anything else. Well, so it's hidden amongst the rest.
Not to get ahead of things, but there actually is like a red herring in basically every one of the books, or at least certainly the first 4. But yeah, we'll come to those when we get to them. It's kind of part of the formula. Not that I'm complaining, it just is.
It's part of mystery form. Well, it also you guys haven't. Fantastic Beasts also has that as well. Both of them.
I haven't seen yet.
I it's funny because
it's something consistent with her just going on.
Yeah, like I haven't seen the entirety of the film, but I've seen like roughly the first half and the second half of the first one, just on 2 different occasions. So I know what at least one big twist is, and I go, why? But it doesn't really that's
what's even funnier is that we would have released we would have already released the our opinions on that film that I haven't seen yet a few weeks ago. So speaking to you from the past.
But I bring that up again because it's consistent with J.K. Rowling and the way she tells her stories. Like even now, when she's gone past Harry Potter and done some different stuff.
And it's actually really cool how she sets it up too. It's like red herring. You can use the word like it's a cliche, but like I said, like I say very often in these videos, cliches can work as long as you're
they're called tropes.
Yeah,
and tropes are cliches that are accepted.
Yeah, and you're not going to catch it this early on in the book, but she's set up already a little bit. She's structured it. One of the red herrings in this book is Percy, whether you know it or not. But that comes up as the book progresses, and we've already seen a little bit of that, but we can touch on that more where it's relevant later on in the book. But yeah, let's move on.
But yeah, they get to the platform late as a result of these antics, and the rest of the family go through the platform without difficulty. They get through, and it's odd to me that Mrs. Weasley goes through before she realises that everyone else is there. She should really be the last person, but obviously this has to happen for it to make sense in the plot, so it's not exactly in any way a major problem. But yeah, this has always been a really funny thing to me. Even back in the day when I read this for the first time, I was like, I mean, really, this is your only option? Like when McGonagall later on says, "Why didn't you just send an owl?" And I'm like, yeah, that was a very very obvious thing.
We have a flying car.
We're gonna be late to Hogwarts.
How cool would it be?
We can't possibly be late.
I always had the mental image of like Mr. and Mrs. Weasley coming back out and watching them like take off. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
Just
precisely.
Precisely.
Just have wait 5 seconds for us.
Because it's like how long would you possibly have to wait? Well, I guess maybe the idea is that they normally just disapparate like from the platform instead of going back through the barrier, so maybe they wouldn't notice. But wouldn't they notice whether Harry and Ron got on?
They're also concerned that they might not be able to make it back themselves. They may think that they're trapped in.
That,
yeah, but they do voice it. But it's just
but yeah,
as
they wouldn't leave
said,
the car there though. Like they just wouldn't leave the car there, so they would have come back to the car.
As Anton said,
it's
kids being excited.
Books, do other students use Flu, the network? I have a feeling that
I don't recall.
You had to go there.
I don't recall.
I thought someone had to get there special for some reason, and they had to use the Flu network.
They use them
specifically for
they use them during the that particular year because they were trying to be safer and keep as much travel keep the travel time down.
That's what it was. Yeah.
But that's not a standard practice. And just the idea that these guys, well, I mean, we can't get through, so immediately the only thing we can possibly do is fly this illegal car across the country in broad daylight. No chance we could just wait.
Right. And I also like him bringing up Ron, his dialogue where he's like, if it's a real emergency, we can use section 19 of whatever. What's the what? Let's get
section something or other of thingy. Yeah, it goes back to Ron's vague knowledge of the world again, and Harry's like, oh yeah, sure, let's just do that. Because they're Gryffindors. They're not going to be thinking this through.
I like that. Like Ron has been waiting for his whole life for an emergency, and like this is the closest thing that comes close to qualifying as that. Like it was an emergency. The barrier was closed. I had to, Minister. Like what would his defense be if we couldn't get through? But yeah, and
this chapter also does really well of doing mini conflicts and resolutions throughout, like little, just miniature, like not significant, like world ending or whatever. But like the first one is they're in the car and like, oh, look how awesome it is that we're flying. We need to get to Hogwarts and like show off. And then like as they like travel for hours, they're like, oh wait, we're in a really hot car.
Yeah,
I feel
precisely.
really hot.
Yeah.
The toffees that we've eaten are gone and make our mouth dry. Like I like that it goes from being like, this is so cool to, oh, this kind of sucks. And then like that continues throughout the entire chapter.
Yeah, the mundanity of just basic travel, even though you've got this wonderful kind of visual landscape of the clouds and the horizon, the way she describes the kind of joy of, this is surely the only way to travel, and you can just put yourself in their shoes and love it yourself. But then hours later, it kind of the novelty wears off for you.
It's the equivalent for Harry of like his first flight. It is like basically outside of like Quidditch, like being taken somewhere. He's never been on a plane. Or at least I can't imagine he has been with the Dursleys. So it's like, it's really, when you stop and think about what you're doing, like traveling like through the air, like it's crazy. Like that's fantastic. But how quickly are we all just so bored to shut my window? And then
I know, exactly. Can I go to sleep? Yep, so true.
So yeah, like the novelty wears off really quickly.
I also like when they turn invisible as well. The description of the floating eyeballs. Like for all I know, that they're just a pair of eyeballs now, because they can't see anything else, including themselves. So I really enjoyed that one before the actual takeoff.
I also had to remind myself that you guys drive on the wrong side of the road. So when he said Ron's voice came from the right, I was like, or no, from the left. I was like, wait, what? Because my visual, like, without thinking about the movie, I was like, oh yeah, no, Harry's totally on the right side, Ron's on the left.
Other way around.
Driving. And I was like, oh no. Like,
you're thinking you're picturing from the front.
No, I'm thinking that's how I was thinking because I'm American.
Right.
Now, like, oh, that's right. I'm reading a UK book.
I think it's hilarious how consistently we all refer to it as the wrong side instead of the other side.
It's objectively the right side
America.
In every way.
We're not going through this again. We're not going through this again, Kellen.
But yeah, I love as well the description from Ron of the car. Oh no, it's just tired. It's fine. Yeah, it's just it's treating it like this. And it is kind of true. We haven't seen it from the story up to this point, but immediately following this, post Whomping Willow, we see that Arthur has kind of created a sentient creature with this enchantment.
And even with most enchantments too, it's sort of like that, where they do take on their own personalities as long as the magic is working on it. Like you remember broomsticks. You have that, like you treat it like a horse rather than an object. Like magic has a life of its own.
Yeah, which I really enjoy the way she just portrays that in various different gradients throughout the stories. It's never the focus, but it's a nice little background thing, and it helps. I don't know, it just helps kind of sell the magic of this moment, rather than him just going, oh, it's fault, it's the spell is destabilizing, or no, he just says, no, it's tired. It just adds a little bit of character to it.
I like it when it's quirky like this, but my brain can't handle thinking about some of it too much. Like at one point, I remember like later in book 6 when Hermione is upset and she's creating birds and like she uses them to attack Ron. It's like, are you just like creating minions right now? Like, I mean, you're just like creating life and like turning them into like mobile weapons with like, what are you doing? Like, it just seems like too much. Like, but in any case, of course, yeah, but like they weren't alive before.
No, I know.
I know where you're coming from. Weird. Yeah, I like when they actually get to Hogwarts because she does an interesting way of how to like reintroduce the castle by them like almost crashing into the things. It's like, oh, and this is where the greenhouse is, and this is where the lake is. Oh, but we're almost gonna crash into. Like she does a really good job of like, this is book 2, so you get kind of
She does that all throughout. She does that all throughout. Like later on, what if somebody doesn't know how Quidditch works? I'll have an annoying kid ask Harry a bunch of questions about how Quidditch works, and he'll just.
This only really happens, I think, in the first 3 books. So that doesn't happen much later on in the series.
She does.
Shouldn't, because you're deep in the series at that point. You're deep into it.
Precisely. She leaves at that point. She goes, okay, they know what they're talking about. If they don't, then it's their own problem. She stops trying to kind of reintroduce them in.
For the first 3 books, it's like, oh, you might have just heard about my book series. And you might have picked this one up by accident for whatever reason. Like, so it makes sense.
Yeah, it fits. This is very well done in the film as well. This sequence. I mean, the entire of the film is good as we've said before. But yeah, this particular, when they're flying over the Hogwarts castle and stuff, and just the magic of being in that car was very well done. I like the kind of.
It's a little bit more embellished in the film, I think, isn't it? Like
he
doesn't
it's
like
a lot
fall
more.
out of the...
it's a lot more dramatic in the film. But
because that would have been just boring watching them just be bored in the car. So they had to
Oh, that's right. They had a moment where he like fell. Oh, yeah, that's right. You're right.
Yeah, like when he the car started having problems. Yeah.
That's right. Which is actually a good moment. It's still the characters, just in a new scene.
Yeah.
That's when it's okay to deviate. Also, Callan, did you also notice gnarled bows?
Yeah. I did. I was like, that's wonderful timing. Gnarled boughs.
We had a personal conversation about what the branches of trees were. They actually have a name, and it's called boughs. And
Well, yeah,
we were like,
the bough of a tree when they kind of splinter
bough,
outwards
sorry.
from the top of the tree into the kind of the canopy. Yeah, it was like I was like,
So I
I
read
could have
that and
sworn
I
that
was
was the
like,
right word
oh.
just yesterday when we
Okay.
were going through his book. But anyway, yeah, I like as well the setup leading into this because they've obviously been envisioning this, grandiose, victorious landing as they sweep onto the, and it just, that does not happen. It's
They
like,
thought they were well. It could have if they were Fred and George. They would have found a way. But
precisely.
they're not Fred and George, so
Precisely.
they don't have that panache that they would be able to accomplish this with.
and as such, they just plow straight into the one tree in the entire grounds that can hit back.
That will fight
and
back, yeah.
Worth to note as well, this is another example of one of those things where J.K. clearly didn't have this in mind at the very start, because, or at least didn't. It was an example of something she missed in the first book, because this comes up completely out of nowhere. And if you'd been at Hogwarts for a year, someone is going to have mentioned, or you are going to encounter the Whomping Willow. So this is an example of one of those kind of minor oversights, because this is the first time they've encountered them, as far as we can tell.
I mean, they
it's
don't
supposed to be
know
a
a
normal
lot of
tree.
things about.
Yeah, that's true.
They
It's
don't
a pretty
know a lot
major
things
part of
about
the
it.
grounds,
Like,
though. This one.
Like, stay away from there. The third floor, and also
precisely.
that tree.
Yeah, don't go near that tree because it will kill you. I mean, it's a pretty extreme example of a ground feature.
But it's supposed to be close to the forest, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, is the
Yeah,
impression
so
you get.
just like you just shouldn't be over there, basically. Like Dumbledore's like, I covered it. I said stay out of the forest.
That is part of the forest. So
I mean, I think I've always been like, what? They don't know where Professor Trelawney is. They don't have like the rough idea after 2 years. So like this place is huge.
Yeah.
So like I can
Right.
accept that after like 1 year they don't know about this tree.
Yeah, it's
Especially
no
someone
major
like,
issue. It's
Harry and
noteworthy
Ron.
when they first mention and introduce it. How do you not know about this? But I like the way it is kind of mentioned. Like, how did we hit the only tree that hit back? It's like just the visual of it, reacting to them is funny. But we also get the introduction of Ron's wand being broken as well. That's a pretty key thing.
right, which is important. Yeah.
Which apparently the teachers have no problem
Stays that
with.
way all throughout the book.
Yeah,
That's a interesting consequence.
the teachers
And
are
it
just
comes
like,
up
it's
in the
fine. You
plot.
can keep practicing with that extremely dangerous weapon at this
Right.
Well,
point.
McGonagall would have just been like, "It's your own fault, Weasley." Or like she wouldn't care. And like his mom would have been the same way. He even like says, he telegraphs that like when Harry says, "Go get another one."
For sure, yeah. I like his reaction to that specific thing in the next chapter. But it's just, it is a little bit unhelpful and dangerous to him and everyone around him, as we know. So maybe give him this one little bit of leeway, guys.
No, this is a learning. This is a teaching moment. He's never going to fly Hogwarts again. Like he learned his lesson. He'll fly Thestrals out though. But
Yeah,
in any
yeah.
case though. But yeah, so they show up there and they're like,
Or they're at the Great Hall and they're looking, peeking in.
yeah, they're like,
Yes,
Jenny
I love this
and
visual as well of just having
Calling Creevy.
the sorting up in front. Again,
It is
going back
weird,
to the
like-
first instance of her dodging the sorting song because she didn't want to write one. That has to be the reason.
Oh, right. She's like, oh, I have to write another one of these. No.
No, let's
You'll
just
miss
let's just have them miss it every single year, pretty much.
they're not going to get it again until like book 4. I don't
it. Goblet, yeah.
Mm.
which is I'm fine with that. But in any case, yeah, it's like you just mentioned the Creevy introduction. Like when she does things like that, I think it's interesting, and at the same time, it's just like sort of like I don't even know what you would call it. It's just like some kind of writer's tool because like becomes a character, but like and there's really no reason Harry would remember that kid specifically because he doesn't know him. And he's like just like a mousy haired boy, which is like a funny way of describing somebody as well. But yeah, he
It's just
immediately
that
meets
kind
him in
of-
like the next chapter.
It's just that kind of small tidbit, and he only really remembers it because of how ingrained this entire evening is going to be in his head as the result of the next hour or two. Because immediately following this, Snape turns up, and again, love the introduction. It's the reintroduction of the character in the series, and it comes at the follow-up of them both saying, I hope he's ill. Maybe he left. And he's like, or maybe he's wondering why he didn't arrive on the train. It's like you can just feel the kind of slow turn as they both look round behind them and see him scowling.
Does he really have nothing else to do?
I know.
Like,
It's
I
like,
mean, just-
where
The
He's
are
like-
second he saw that
Potter
Harry
and
wasn't
Weasley
there,
aren't
he
on
was
the
like,
Yeah, but you don't see that Harry's not there. Like you go looking for Harry and
Yeah.
find that he's not there, and then
presumably before they even
I
get
know
to
what
the
I'm doing
feast,
tonight.
because he had to have time to get out of the Great Hall and go all the way around
Yeah.
to this outside of the ground. So
it's like he heard like
Yeah.
the whistles from like the train arrive. And
Yeah.
like, where's Potter? I need to find Potter. Get out of my
Precisely.
way. It's like
I mean,
what?
if we
But
want to
looking
try,
down the
wanna
register,
try
it's like, where is he? Why wasn't he reported in?
if we want to try. He promised that he would protect Harry. And he's like, well, why is he not on the train? He was supposed to. I need to protect him and make sure he's good.
Still, though, that's stretching.
If we want to try and grasp for straws. But we could try for that.
There's a moment as well later on that I can just visualize perfectly in my head after the next scene. But yeah, he leads them to the he leads them down to the dungeon.
The mind reading bit, the little.
Oh yes, the re-mention of that. Yeah, that keeps coming up with them. He's like, you always have the impression that he could read minds.
Long time.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't really come back until 5, I suppose.
Not until 5.
Yeah. You get light mentions each, pretty much for each book, I think.
And at the same time, and in here he's legitimately not doing it. Like he's just read the paper today. But yeah, it does keep that door open a lot.
Right.
Like he gives that impression all the time.
And he's not that strong where he does it all the time, like actively.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, he
put it into place.
He doesn't just keep it on all the time, but
or just say passively.
Just that sense that even his piercing gaze when he's not doing it is focused enough. It's a really strong visual even before you understand that occlumency is a thing or legitimacy.
Right.
I have the impression that like of all this magical skill, like that's probably one that you're probably not supposed to use on students. Like according to the rules of being a teacher, that's probably like barred.
I would
that's an
imagine
invasion of privacy. So he can't really go bandying about that. Like, yeah, I do this. It's like he just gives that impression. Even though yes, he will do it. He'll do it only when
after Dumbledore said, "Okay, you can do it." And he's like, "Yes."
Or if he's like sufficiently motivated for Snape like obsession reasons, which is rare. Like outside of Potter.
Otherwise, why would he? Why would he want to be in those stupid little kids' heads? He wouldn't deign to do it because
there's that.
I also love Jo's when she titles articles. She has nice alliteration going on.
Yeah. And just the description of the people, the sightings when she's just this woman had seen while she was doing her laundry or whatever it was.
Do you have a place called Peebles?
Is that a thing, really?
Is that in the book? I remember Norfolk.
I read the place was.
I remember Norfolk, which is worth noting as well because if you're flying from London or taking the train, indeed, from London to the Scottish Highlands, as we know Hogwarts is located there, you do have to go through Norfolk. So I like that she's at least vaguely mapped the journey out in her head too.
She lives there, so it works.
Yeah, of course. Well, I should hope she gets it right, but yeah, you don't have to put that attention to detail in. So,
sure. Mr. Angus Fleet of Peebles. You have a place called Peebles?
Yeah, we must do then. I've not heard of it.
Okay. It must be real small.
I'm just being very ignorant, or whether it is just a small town. I do not know. But yeah, we get the
the teachers all get involved. Snape angry, McGonagall angry.
Each of different degrees of explain yourself from each of them. Have different flavors of strict. I love McGonagall's ability to just command the two in like 2 words.
I think I know what Matt's gonna say.
But more than that,
she comes in and she like brandishes a wand, and they're afraid she's about to attack them.
Yeah,
it's like because you can almost buy that's gonna happen.
Yeah, that's the kind of rage. I mean, this is the angriest they've seen her as well. I love how the line of her mouth just disappears. Yeah, you just imagine it just disappearing off the face of the earth when she gets more and more angry. I love it.
I didn't think that
is obvious.
Like that's so McGonagall. It's so good.
She's again perfect snapshot introduction of the character because she's fairer than Snape, but she's still very very strict, and she's definitely that as we said before, she's definitely that teacher that carries herself with the gravitas of a authoritarian.
Snape's perfectly happy with the way she's handling the situation. It's only after Dumbledore shows up that he gets
goddamn favoritism.
And again, another little tidbit line, the one that we've all kind of probably felt in our lives at some point, the fact that he doesn't shout. The disappointment is so much worse. Just please explain why you've
something
done
that
this.
should have been told to Michael Gambon. He should have read this sequence.
Did you want to put on the fire? Yeah, and I blame the direction, not him. But yeah, that's the worst moment
What's funny about that is he was kind of like he wasn't horribly out of character all throughout his first film. Like in Azkaban, he was fine. He was great, but he was fine. He didn't get terrible until Goblet. So it's like he had a whole film, or like whoever was in charge of that had a whole film to get him like acclimated to the role, and they failed.
Yeah,
well, he had 2 different directors, so it could have been that issue too.
Yeah, but the same writer. Like
same writer though.
Yeah, like somebody worked.
True.
But
somewhere in the script there's a single line that needed redoing. It's like he said gently.
And
but,
like I was saying before, this is our reintroduction into this world. So we are, we get introduced to Snape as like, okay, that's our hated teacher, McGonagall. She's the stern one. But then Dumbledore, like, he ends off his sequence in that scene and being like, you know what? I have what was it? Like a treat that he wants to like sample or whatever. Like, I get this guy.
Tart,
yeah,
he's
cool.
Yeah.
And this is the moment, like, I can just visualize in my head as they walk out, because Snape's been going, oh, but you know, Headmaster, they should be, sent away. This is a breach of the law. And Dumbledore just walks out into the corridor with him. He's like, Severus, really? I mean, are you serious with this? And he's like, shut up. Just keeps moving forward. Because we know that these two are close behind scenes,
But what's infuriating about Snape's position is that Dumbledore doesn't like all the time level with him. Sometimes he's just like, you got to deal with my wackiness. Like, let's go have a tart. And it's like just the idea of Snape eating, because he almost doesn't seem human sometimes.
Yeah,
it's like just him eating dessert with Dumbledore is like, this is a scene. I don't know.
There's just something weird about it.
Page.
Yeah.
I like the idea of Professor McGonagall not quite smiling.
Yes.
Almost.
Yeah.
Smiling.
But Professor, we weren't actually in terms. It's like, oh, these kids.
The way I think of
You're
it
good
is
kids.
not as she hasn't smiled. She's just stopped frowning.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But
that's really
just,
what it is.
Just the kind of intensity of her presence is the smallest change is enough to to register. I love that about it, and it just it's that what's the word? Not cheekiness, but you get that feel about her, the soft edges even through the strictness. It's what it's what endears her to us at the end of the day.
Well, she's strict, but she's got nothing against them.
Yeah.
Like she plays fair. She's just ultra strict.
Yeah. And she does ultimately like them. It's like, oh, good kids. But we get her delivering them plates of food, so they can eat, and they basically just spend the.
Which I thought was awesome when I was a little kid. I was like,
I know,
oh my
right?
God, I wish I had a plate that refilled with sandwiches. Like,
just
what?
the visual alone is really cool. But yeah, they
so
get to,
is the thought that the house elves are just each time like the plate is getting lower,
they're just
like,
madly dashing to get some more.
They're
They're still eating because we know that you can't create food. So she has to.
There's no reason that can't be the case because that's basically what they do in the Great Hall. They're just sending up different plates of food. But also, Hermione does say that if you know where it is, you can create more from it. You can't create like an original source, but you can replicate it. So she might have just made like an infinite, like self-replicating plate of sandwiches because she knows it's in the kitchen. So who knows?
Yeah.
There's workarounds for that.
Oh, speaking of Hermione, she comes back up with her own stern McGonagall-ness.
Yes, yeah, mini
Why
McGonagall.
are you flying?
She's been sitting on the train the whole time going, what the hell? Like,
I know.
I know, precisely. It must have been horrible that just have the only two friends that she's friendly with other people. She's friendly with other people.
Yeah, I think she probably
but the closest friend she has is just, where are you guys? But at least she got to see them. And I think this is probably one of the reasons it was introduced earlier in the book. At least she got to see them at Diagon Alley. They have had their reunion by this point. Because if this was the first time that they got together in the book, it would have felt really. She would have been kind of too far, just left in the background.
Yeah, she did that with Hagrid too, to an extent, because she knew there would be like this extended, bit at Hogwarts where it wasn't like the normal smooth transition into the school year, which they only get like every other year,
Yeah, so it's good that she spent took the time to give that Diagon Alley sequence some flair with these characters, because I would have hated it if this had been the first time. It would have felt shoehorned in. Despite it being perfectly reasonable and normal, it would have been wrong narratively. But yeah, she gives her usual, Hermione reaction to it, and they get into the common room to a Gryffindor, celebration.
Wallop.
It's just basically the standard from now on, isn't it? The amount of times you come back to the common room and have people just like, yeah, these are the most interesting kids in the school.
My favorite one of those was probably Half-Blood Prince, when Harry first kisses Jenny, if I'm not mistaken.
It's the my favorite, celebration post
coming back to the common room.
Yeah, post the Gryffindor victory.
Another good one would be the first book where they become friends. That's a good one too. They have there's a lot of these that are really good.
Just that feeling of stepping through the portrait. The amount of times we get a moment of them just walking into that room and something happens, or someone comes out, or there's a reaction, or there's the emotional beat. Even something like Ron and Hermione having their argument. There's always Harry just. From Harry's perspective, walking into that portrait and having something immediately on sight. She does that very well. And it feels like a small microcosm of coming home within the greater coming home of revisiting Hogwarts. I've always really liked it. It's a very homely room.
And again, that ebb and flow, the hills and valleys, like he continues and continues, and then at the end they feeling like, oh, we kind of we feel bad because we got our, we almost got expelled, but then like come back and they're like, oh, that's right, we did a pretty awesome thing, and they feel good again.
Yeah.
You have like Fred and George giving you props, Lee Jordan saying that that's a great idea what they did, and
they've been talking about this for years. It's just the hype of the moment, and it's one of those school stories that will never fade away, or it's not for a very long time. They do kind of get overshadowed by everything else these guys do because it's always these three. But yeah, I like that they dodge Percy. They go up to the common room, and then despite the guilt they're feeling, they get that kind of when the others come back in afterwards and reaffirm it for them. Just that cheeky kind of that was pretty cool. That they can't stop the smile coming to their faces. It was a wonderful end to the chapter.
I like that Ron's the one who says it because he normally doesn't get to share in moments like this.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we shouldn't feel, happy about this, but and then Harry's like, yeah, that was pretty cool.
Because this is, for me, what I always felt was the first one was the trio book. The second one is kind of a Ron and Harry book, and then it's Hermione and Harry in the third book, and the fourth one's kind of Harry alone. So yeah, I do feel like there's a lot of Ron that happens in this book.
Yeah. It's sort of like a gradient of that, like even after that, because after like Harry alone, then it's like Harry plus more than he knows how to deal with order.
Yeah.
We're just like there's too many people involved.
It's kind of trio.
You guys can all get killed here.
Yeah, it's kind of trio Ron and Harry, trio Harry and Hermione, then trio again. With the larger with Dumbledore's army introduced. He does kind of sequence them out quite nicely throughout the series. Yeah, you're right. I hadn't noticed that before actually. Or I hadn't really thought about it.
Oh, you have? Oh, yeah. I always like that as one of the structure things that she does.
Yeah, because after Order, then it's Harry and Dumbledore, and then after that, it's Hogwarts versus everyone.
Basically, everybody's the world.
Yeah, it was a nice balance. I like it.
Yeah, it's cool.
But yeah, that's the end of this chapter. And again, it's not so much of one of those cliffhanger chapters, but it's that satisfying. Yeah, precisely. It's a satisfying, feel good. And we're back. We're finally back into Hogwarts. We're going to settle back into that wonderful magical routine. And we see what happens next. And yeah, it was just one of those ones where even though you don't feel that immediate urge to need to turn the page, you definitely want to because you're back at Hogwarts.
Yeah, for sure.
It does do a really good job of, say you didn't read the first book for some reason. Oh, these are the teachers. These are the relevant teachers here. And these are their personalities, and this is the feeling of being in this place. So yeah, I like it for that. It's interesting that she's able to accomplish that with limited page space. You know what I mean? Like she did this fairly quickly, all things considered.
Yes, very concisely. That's a strength of the early books. Full stop. The fact that she's got to get this information across as quickly as possible because we are still dealing with young children at this point. Compared to the later books where she can spend. This would be a much longer chapter, as we know.
Well, that's when you caught him. Once you catch it, it's like, all right.
You grow up with the books. Yeah, precisely. So you go into, because I don't have a problem with those long ass books, but yeah, like a 9-year-old isn't going to sit down and be like, yeah, I'm going to read the dictionary now. Like when you look at Order.
Yeah, you do need to grow up with them, and it's just why they've worked so effectively for everyone of all ages. Just that.
Yeah, even for someone, even if you weren't young reading this, I think even if you're just a regular reader, like an adult reader, it's better that they are a little bit more short at the start, because again, you are just kind of like, okay, do you like this? Are you into it? All right. I think by big 4 you're into it, so let me just give you everything that I really wanted to show you. And it's a good way of that's a good strategy for any, I think, series in general, not just a children's book or anything like that.
Definitely agree. But those have been our thoughts on chapter 5. Chapter 5, Whomping Willow.
Yes, you're right.
I'm ready for, and I still don't have an outro.
Sure he doesn't. I'm Graded and I do one. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye-bye.
Antoine Vandelay, mischief managed.
Goodbye.